Hello, friends. It's time for Talk Fort Dodge, the show that uncovers the stories behind the houses and the heart of our community. I'm Jeremiahjcondon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and today we are here with Dr. Terry Moehnke, good friend of mine. But before we talk to him, let's do a quick market update.
A little market update. The first quarter of 2025 is now done. So I compared that with the first quarter last year, and it was very, very similar. Although the median sale price went up $7,000 and the days on the market had increased by about 6 days.
Oh, that sounds right. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
House of the week. What do we got?
House of the week, 304 2nd Street Northwest. We just went and walked through it. It's $169,900. It's a brick home built 1930, but it's got like the new mixed with the old.
Oh, the bathroom's cool. It's got the dark tile with the white, and it's got the designs in it. And the shower in the basement, you know those old showers, the Cleveland showers, that are just like the brick walls? They finished it with the most cool tile. It's like, this is way too nice to be a little basement shower. I'd even shower down there.
Yeah, and for 19...
Every once in a while.
With the new homeowner?
Yeah, if he wants.
Todd's going to ask for a 7:30 showing so he can go in and shower and get ready for work.
Hey, can I borrow your shampoo?
It's that nice of a shower.
It is that nice.
So we have some interesting updates in the world. A key highlight. Baby boomers have regained the top spot as largest share of home buyers. And that's pretty shocking to me. I almost thought it was like an April Fool's Day joke when I read it.
It might be.
You know, because the millennials have had that for like the last 2-3 years.
Did they give a reason why?
Well, it said that they rose to 42%, while millennials fell from 38% down to 29%.
Is that because the millennials are living with the baby boomers?
Well, it said two reasons. Multi-generational is on the rise, which we've talked about.
Yep.
But Gen X is leading that trend. And then this is kind of weird numbers, but it says half of the older boomers and 40% of the younger boomers are purchasing homes with cash. So half of them are cash buyers.
That I guess makes sense.
And I think it kind of falls into the multi-generational where the boomers are supporting the cash, and then their kids are just kind of moving in and living. That's how I kind of read that. Here's another one. Have you ever heard of a Dennis Hope?
No.
So Dennis Hope read the international treaties about home ownership of the moon, not home ownership of the moon, and discovered an astronomical loophole.
Astronomical.
Yeah, that's a better way to say that.
That's a big word.
I like to make up my own words. The agreement asserts that no country can claim ownership of an extraterrestrial territory, but it says nothing about individual ownership. So Dennis wrote to the United Nations to inform them that he had officially claimed the lunar landscape. He invited them to challenge his claim. He never heard back. So he now claims to own it, and he has made $12 million by selling acres on the moon for $20 and $30 a piece. He has also claimed the rest of the solar system and currently is selling Pluto for $250,000. More fascinating, 3 former U.S. presidents do own property on there, and it's George Bush, Ronald Reagan, and Jimmy Carter.
Oh.
And there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, I can remember years ago you used to be able to buy a square inch of Alaska for like 25 cents on a cereal box.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think mine is right underneath some oil.
It's got to
Okay.
be.
Yeah, it's probably a good investment.
That would be a good investment.
Yeah.
Well, you can do the knights and stuff in England, too. You can buy like 1 square inch of England, so you can be knighted as a landowner in England. They got something you can do that, too.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I own the moon.
I might want to buy my $30 share and see if it rises.
Yeah, you might. Let's buy one.
Okay.
We should do that. We'll give him another $60. You want one, too?
Sure.
All right. $100.
$100.
Let's get her done.
3 shares
We
of
got
the moon.
I thought you said you were going to be fun and entertaining.
I don't know if that's on the good side or the bad side of the moon.
So, Dr. Moehnke, thank you for being here.
Not a problem.
What I'd like to do at this point is kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what got you up to this point.
Okay. Well, I've been in Fort Dodge for 40 some odd years, came here in the early 80s. I'm an optometrist. Served in the Navy for a short period of time, married 52 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, no problem. And
I can't believe she put up with you that long.
trust me, the relationship isn't built on me. Yeah. So anyway, we have 2 kids, 2 boys and 3 grandchildren. Sean just retired from the Army,
Nice.
21 years. He's out in California for now, heading back to Maine for some unknown reason. And Kyle's in Cedar Rapids with his wife and Tony, my youngest granddaughter. So
Nice. We got one close.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it to California very often. Pam travels quite a bit. She gets out there.
Okay.
There's that bond, between grandkids and grandma.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what'd you do in the Navy? Eye doctor?
Yeah, I was an optometrist. I was on the HR2 scholarship program. I went to Southern College of Optometry way back when. I always said they squeezed me in. I got there. Elvis died the summer I left, and Martin Luther King got killed a couple years before me, so I hit kind of the notch there. Lived downtown Memphis, which was exciting. Growing up in South Dakota and Minnesota, it's a completely different environment than what I was used to. Never had any problems, got along well with everybody, and, went to school and did well in school and got the scholarship and went. They asked me where I wanted to go, and I told them Whidbey Island, Bremerton, Washington, and somewhere in Florida. And so they sent me to Connecticut.
We talked about this with the Army recruit where he goes, what do you want to do? He goes, I'm starting a computer science degree. He goes, good, you can be an MP.
Yeah. Well, they put me where they wanted me, and it was fine. I mean, that's a part of the country I probably never would have investigated. We had a chance to go to Boston quite a bit and look around, Paul Revere, and walked his path, and didn't make too much time in New York City. New York City scared me. I had a corpsman who was from New York City that told me he was going to take me down there and show me my way around, and I said, no, thank you.
That's when New York City was rough, too.
Yeah, rough.
It wasn't like it is today.
There's a lot of people there.
Yeah, really? He is entertaining.
Well, the whole East Coast is basically person after person. And, there's very little break. It's kind of like Southern California. It's just a different name on the sign. It really doesn't mean you're any place different. But
Yeah.
it's interesting. I mean, we enjoyed it. We didn't. We lived 25 miles from base, and so when it snowed a lot out there. We had the lake effect snow or ocean effect snow. So yeah, I was out there a couple years, and we were glad to get out of there, but and go back home. But yeah,
Awesome.
so that's my life in a nutshell.
Life in a nutshell. So one of the things you're known best for, when not being an eye doctor, is city council. You were on city council for quite a few years, and take us back. What drove you to be on city council the first time?
Well, if you can remember, I was on there for 10 years, and when we did Envision 2030, there was a lot of plans and hopes and dreams for the community, and I think we came together and came out with a pathway that we wanted to see the city in 2030, and the council back then was, I call them angry. They were angry. They were angry. It was a split, always a 4-3 vote, and basically there was a lot of things that I thought should have been done that weren't being done. Street repairs consisted of slurry on the road, a black tar with a little bit of gravel in them.
Yep.
And that was considered a fix. It didn't fix anything. When the Crossroad Connector came into play, we got a $2 million federal grant for that, and the council was actually talking about sending that money back. Well, I'm a great believer, and if the government gives you something, especially a grant, we can find a way to spend it. And so there was a lot of discussion and a lot of very upset people. And I remember the meeting out at Iowa Central where it became, very animated, and a lot of frustration, and a lot of people were very upset, and I was too. And that's basically what I saw was an opportunity to make a difference. And I ran, and I was successful, obviously, and was reelected 4 additional times for a total of 5 elections. And I think we did a good job. I think in the 10 years I was on there, we saw a lot of progress. Our biggest concerns in Fort Dodge, as you two know, are housing. I mean, we didn't, in 86, there were no new houses being built in Fort Dodge. And when I came here...
Well, 1986 was also an IBP and Hormel shut down all at the same time.
I know.
There was a big housing surplus.
I came here in 82, and I had a few houses I could pick from. But, basically we had a lot of glut in the market. I mean, a lot of people made good investments by buying the properties that were here. became successful landlords and successful investors in real estate as a result of the fact that we weren't growing, and everybody was thinking, this is not good, but we're getting people from out of town that were here for the affordable housing.
Yep.
With it comes the problems that we're seeing today, and people aren't keeping up with the properties, and things are a little bit of a challenge trying to keep homeowners, fixing and maintaining and improving their property. And I think that's one thing we've addressed yearly on the city council when I was there, was the housing situation. And out of that came Williams Bend. And with the Growth Alliance, Denny Plotz kind of leading the charge on that. And so we had an opportunity to bring in what they considered affordable housing. And I'm sure that's a debatable term for you two.
I think affordable housing is just one of those things. Everybody likes it as a key word, but nobody knows what it is.
Yeah, well, I always figured, if we could build a house for $100,000, we'd have enough people to buy them that we wouldn't have to worry about them. But you can't build a house for $100,000.
No.
The $250,000 mark, which was out in the Williams Bend area, I thought was maybe a little bit high for first-time homeowners. They, but they didn't listen to me on that. But we did offer them an opportunity to have housing available that we did not have for a long period of time. So I think that was one thing that we really worked on and was very successful. We addressed the public safety issue, and we were able to work with the fire department getting a lot of that stuff done that the fire department needed. When Nevin Conrad was on the board, we pushed real hard for a number of years to get more police officers. We were all shooting for 3. And you can tell that did not work very well. We still have the same numbers as what we had before. So,
and those guys work hard. We've had Quinn on and talk about how many calls they get. And actually, our next episode's going to have the fire chief on, so he's going to talk about that too.
Yeah, he's a nice kid.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody's a kid to me. But the problem with the police department, the number of calls is one thing, but everybody says we need to train our police officers. Well, when you're pushing the police officers, the way that they are with the 12-hour shifts and no time off, and it's hard to train when you're at work all the time. And
yes, it is.
When do you have time for training and schooling and learning? And
well, that's just it. You can't fix a problem if you can't get the people in a room to talk about it. And so, it's frustrating for them, it's frustrating for their families, and it's frustrating for the community. Mm-hmm. And those are things that we need to address and focus on, I think, over the next few years. So basically, a crosstown connector was why I got involved, and I wasn't happy with the way that the council was handling things.
It was a lot of split decisions back in the day, when you got on it. It was kind of crazy that every time something come up, but the mayor doesn't vote unless it's a tie. Yeah. And I think the mayor made most of those decisions. Yeah. And who was the mayor when he got on? Was it
Matt? Matt was the mayor. Matt's been the mayor since, he's been there 16 years, I think.
Okay.
So, and he's done a good job. And he's
done a great job.
Yeah, and the problem you run into is how are we going to replace him? He's got a lot of experience, a lot of connections, knows the construction business. He knows TIF like nobody else knows. Well, I shouldn't say that because Denny and Vicky know TIF also. But
pretty soon none of them are going to work for the city, though.
Yeah, I know it. That's the problem. It's interesting, but Matt is very involved. He's out in D.C. now, and he's doing his thing, and he's been an excellent leader, and
he really has.
I enjoyed working with him.
Yep. I kind of wish I could, because I'm doing the city council bid this year, so I am. But kind of wish I had that leadership. And we graduated together, so he's my age, but still he's been, such a different path than I've had.
He's not going to go away. He's going to be around. He's going to be an asset
definitely.
For years. And I anticipate that he will probably step up on a state level in some capacity in the near future. Michelle might disagree with that. As his business too, I think they'd like to have him around, but he's just too valuable of an asset to let slip away.
Yes.
When you said real estate, and we built all those houses for like $250, $265, like in that range. Mm-hmm. We thought it was going to be like first time buyers and stuff that bought it, but really what it was is a whole bunch of families that were sitting in $100,000 to $150,000 houses, and it really did help when they moved. Then all of a sudden it opened up all of those houses. Yep. So it's kind of like in a weird way, when we built those, we all of a sudden did have a bunch of $100,000 to $160,000.
There's a big ripple effect that comes with that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with all these apartment houses. People got to start somewhere. They're not going to start with a $250,000 house. I mean, even at the Iowa Crossroads of Global Innovation, thanks Kelly Halstead for that. You get those
The egg park?
Yeah, the egg park. But you get all those engineers that are coming in, they're making good money, but, a young single guy right out of college doesn't want or need a $250,000 house. He gets married and pops out a couple kids, and suddenly they're looking and they can afford it. But you're right. We opened up, I think, a lot of the lower numbers, 100,000, which is still more than I paid for my house. But
yeah, and a single guy buy a house like that, if he does meet a girl, she's going to make a move anyway,
right?
Because it's not what she picked out.
And we do have some nice apartments now for people to live in.
And we're getting more. I mean, up on 3rd Avenue Northwest, there will be a series of them up there too that is going to be I think, a great asset for that part of town. But District 9, 29, what do they call it? District 9?
District 29.
29. I missed it by 20.
You were close.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great place with the housing and the apartments all in one with a swimming pool now.
Yep.
A block away from the aquatic center. I don't know how that's going to work, but I think that's it was a good idea for those young people out of South Dakota to do that. I hope
they do well there. I think it's full. It filled up faster than they thought because it was phased, and they said they weren't going to do the second phase until a certain benchmark was reached, and they made it pretty quick.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive when you drive down that road and you look up there and you see that amount of housing, and you realize, what was it, 5-6 years ago, that was an empty field.
Yep.
And it's just amazing that the demand is there. Apparently, personally, I'm not in the real estate business, so I don't know. But when these things are built, they show up. I mean, there's a lot of people that are interested in them.
And we have a new housing study, and it kind of says the same thing. We could use a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's more coming, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's some pretty big incentives. I was at a developer fair a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and it was kind of neat to see all the developers come all over the state. And it was even more neat to know I knew a couple of them. Yeah. I'm like, I've been doing this a while. Now I know these guys.
Yeah, we love those developers because we do have some properties in town that we would really like to have developed, as you
I agree.
well know. And I'm sure we'll talk about that before the end. But, we do have big empty buildings that needed a little bit of tender, loving care.
Yep.
So you've always been so active in the community and, serving the 10 years. Where do you go after you take a step down from doing that?
You mean go crazy?
Yeah.
I went through some health issues, and I think a lot of people know that. I wasn't well for a while. I was under treatment, went through 4 different regimens and over 200 rounds of treatment. And we discovered last year that the treatments were making me sicker than what the disease was. And so between the doctors and my wife and myself being the small part of the decision, we just decided that we weren't going to do that anymore. And so I was battling health issues, and I did have some mental problems as a result because I was getting depressed, but it was primarily due to the medications that they had me on. And it was, it's not good stuff, when they're treating something, it's terrible. I mean, I feel sorry for these families that have to put up with it because now I know what they go through on a daily basis. Yeah. But I kept busy. I'm still working, despite my best efforts not to be working. Yeah, but it's tough. It's tough to step away because I was so involved in so many things. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it wasn't only the council. I mean, the council is really a small part of the job. I was also involved with the sister cities and Main Street and Visit Fort Dodge, and there's a lot of different things that you do associated as a result of having the job of being on city council. But suddenly when you walk out the door, you no longer have key access. You got to go to the water department to get a key to go talk to David. My email address disappeared virtually overnight with the city. So, I mean, I lost, it's just like, thanks, but, we don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. And I'm sure, Matt's going to go through that. Lydia's going to go through that. And you're so involved and, you meet and interact with a lot of people, and suddenly you don't need to.
It's almost like losing your little pet or something.
Yeah,
it's like
it's like going through a divorce or something. I mean, it's something that you do and you enjoy, and I mean, it's not a 1 hour every 2 week meeting. I mean, it's basically a major part of your life for a long time, and I enjoyed what I did. I think I made a difference. Came up with some good ideas. Was able to see a lot of things accomplished that I, had thought would be a good idea. I had a lot of good ideas that didn't go anywhere. There's something about lack of money that comes into the conversation.
Only so big of a pot.
So every time I bring it up, it's always that same answer.
And that's a great idea, but how do we pay for it?
Yeah, and I keep saying, you keep telling me no. Is there any way it can be done? And that's what you got to do. I mean, you can't always say no, and that's what people come to you with a problem. I say, don't come to me with a problem. Come to me with a solution to your problem, and we'll work on that. And it's the same way with anything in the community. If you have an issue, don't be afraid to talk about it. But I don't want to say it, but I'm going to. But Facebook is not the place to address the problems that we're facing, because first off, people don't. They're very bitter,
It's really easy for Facebook to get negative.
Yeah, and we've got our few that we deal with, and this is the last month or two, there's been a lot of discussion about a variety of things that have happened in redevelopment in the mall area, and I don't, you know what I'm talking about, and everybody's an expert. Everybody's an expert, but nobody talks to the families that are traveling to Des Moines every weekend with their kids for travel. Basketball and volleyball, and hopefully they can figure out a way to put soccer in there and utilize that facility. And it didn't go the way we wanted. It didn't go the way we intended. It didn't go the way we had started that. I mean, I was on the council when those initial discussions were going on, and the intent was for the city to build and operate that.
Yep.
And when the opportunity came, they came and said, we've got a guy that's interested, and we got the money lined up, and we're going to go ahead and do with it. Suddenly a couple years later, they come back and say, hey, didn't work. Now what? Mm-hmm.
And I talked to Cameron a lot about this, because it's just one of those things that's come up a lot, and people were asking me, because I about the same time I said I'm going to run for council. And I go, oh, what's going on? He goes, they gave us 6 absolutely terrible outcomes to this, and this one's bad, this one's bad, this one's bad, and we picked the best of the worst decisions we could find, and this is what it was. And after he explained that to me, I'm like, honestly, it's nice to know, and maybe afterwards, that it wasn't just a vote at the council. It was hours and days and weeks of how do we do this? How can we handle this? And I think
nobody wanted it to go away. I mean, obviously it was there. The contractor had people that he needed to pay, and the contractor did an excellent job. It's a great facility. I haven't been in it. I was told that I'm a taxpayer.
A lowly taxpayer.
A lowly taxpayer, and I have no right to get in that building. But again, it's something that I think in a couple of years we're going to see, it's going to be a great asset for the community. But again, it's the same thing we ran into at the Warden Plaza, the last developer. I mean, I sat down with that guy, small group meetings with him down, I think we were at the Growth Alliance, and the guy came out of Kansas City, him and his brother, and I walked in the room, and the guy was sweating so bad and so nervous, and I should have taken that as a hint, should have taken it as a hint. And I think that was probably one of my worst decisions, was to support that guy, developing the Warden Plaza, because all he did was ask, but he didn't offer anything back. He didn't do anything.
Yep.
I mean, look at the thing. That's
a good lesson right there.
Yeah. And
because, when somebody takes a bull by the horn, it's like, okay, something like that, you'd think they would come in and be like, listen, we want to hear all your input, but we already have a plan, and we like this plan, and let's tell you about this plan.
Yeah, well, that didn't happen. I mean, basically, all the work that was done on the Warden Plaza when KDG was here was done by Vicki and her staff up at the City Hall. They did everything, all the grant applications and all the filings and everything else. And the potential for that building is great. If you've been in it, you know what it's like. I mean, right now it's a disgrace, and it's an embarrassment to the community, and it's in the heart of our downtown, which is something we need to revitalize. But when you've got this big building sitting there deteriorating, and Dave Flattery actually is out there talking about windows at the Warden Plaza, because we have to restore them historically, and he's going to try to work a way around that. But there's like 1,000 windows there, so I mean, you're looking at $5-6 million probably.
1,000 windows at $2,000 a piece, because they got to be historically accurate, if not more.
To clean it up's one thing, but to make it look better on the inside, I mean, you take a developer in there now, they're going to be coughing and hacking for a week and a half after they walk out because the building is not in very good shape.
No. So what on earth made you decide to run city council again after all these years and all the you know what you're getting into and you still chose to do it again?
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
It is.
I think in the last couple of years I've been a little bit disappointed, and I think the staff and the council do not have as good of interaction as what we had a few years ago. I don't think the proper questions are being asked. I don't think the proper discussions are being had. You go to a meeting and it's 7 to 8 minutes long, and you've got items on the consent agenda that people are concerned about, and people need to talk about it to address the issues, and it's not being done.
Right.
And I think that was one thing I was always good at, not always. It wasn't always an enjoyable experience to have me up there questioning people, that know probably more than I do, but I was up there to get educated just like they were.
And the public needs to be. And we were at the last meeting, and the awkward silences at that last meeting was deafening.
Well, you have a full room, and you got 2 items on the agenda that everybody is concerned about, according to Facebook. Everybody in the world is concerned.
They're
concerned
according
about
to Facebook.
I mean, you're talking about the property tax levy, and people are confused about that. They don't understand the property tax levy. And the other one was the pavilion and the financing of the pavilion with the developer. And we sat in there with, 50 people probably?
Oh, it was full.
Yeah, and the levy thing goes, and Matt calls it to order and asks for questions and comments from the public, and you could have dropped a cricket, and the cricket would have been heard in the room. And the same thing.
Cricket would have felt awkward.
The pavilion thing was on the consent agenda, and nobody pulled it, which I thought was a mistake. I thought somebody should have pulled it for discussion purposes, and nobody pulled it. And so it was passed as a consent agenda is. All the items on the consent agenda are approved in one motion.
Yep.
And so, 15 minutes after the meeting starts, we're out of there.
We're done. And everybody stood outside and talked about it.
Yeah, and everybody's looking around
a million questions.
What happened? I mean, it's just, to me, I was ready for a battle. I didn't know, and I know that talking to other council members, I mean, they were ready and willing to talk, but again, it's become so confrontational anymore that it's very difficult. And but it was, and then you get on Facebook the next day, and I mean, there's 150 comments about, I didn't even know what was going on. Well, it's on the agenda.
Yeah. And it is tough. I mean, I've been going the last 2 meetings, and I plan on being at all of them. And I'm just starting to get the hang of how this works again. I mean, I've been to city council meetings before, but if you're going to be involved, be involved. I mean, I see Mike McCarville a lot. You see a lot of the same people at a lot of these. Yeah. Randy Coleman's been at all of them I've been to. And it takes that time to understand this is how the council works, and this is the time you can pull stuff, and this is when you talk, and this is when because I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to look up what property they're trying to get rid of, because I looked into my office, but didn't realize what it was, and all of a sudden afterwards you're like, that was the pavilion, and I'm like, oh, and nobody said a word.
But see, that's part of the problem is the council members would get the agenda for the following Monday, and they'd normally get it either late Wednesday or early Thursday. So you've got Thursday and Friday, and nobody around on the weekend, and then you got Monday to ask the questions that you need to ask. So you don't, and I always tried to read through the agenda at least 3 times. I'd read through it once just to see what was on there, and I'd go back and I would open every page and read everything on there.
And that's a lot of pages.
A lot of pages.
It's like 60 pages once you pull it all apart.
Minimum.
Yeah.
And, and I've caught mistakes in some of the filings with some of the people we deal with. And, they put down a wrong address or something like that, which, isn't the end of the world. But, in a legal status thing, if you got the wrong address on a piece of property and you're imposing an action on that property, you're kind of, you messed up. And so, you
might have an upset neighbor.
Yeah.
And we gave away the wrong alley.
And I think, we've got great staff. We've got great support people. I mean, the engineers we deal with and the attorneys we deal with are all very, very good, very well informed, and we rely on them a lot. But again, we can't rely on them completely. You have to sometimes question their actions. So, and that's, I think, part of the reason that I got back on the city council was I'm not sure that those things are being done now.
Yeah, it's still quiet.
Yeah, it's still
and
quiet.
the other thing you brought up earlier that it just, and I don't know what else they do, but it seems like City Hall is locked down.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
We go over to the courthouse.
Yeah.
Got to walk through security, and they got armed guards there.
And
it's an intimidating environment on occasion.
Right.
And I think you're going to see that in the near future. You're going to see additional security upgrades in City Hall, because when you look at the council members, there's no place to run, no place to hide. And it's you get some angry people, very passionate people, and if some of these people on the internet actually show up and express their opinion, you don't know what they're coming in with, and it's intimidating. So,
and I think it's fair to say we want to hear their opinion. We don't want them not to talk. We want them to talk. You just don't.
We give everybody
an
opportunity.
We
had some people come in when I was on council that they start out very nice, praising you and making you feel like, oh, I'm really doing something nice, and somebody appreciates me. About that time, they turn on you. You rapidly realize that everybody's not happy. And,
you're one decision away from.
But the problem, if they just knew what they were talking about, if they would read the agenda, if they would read the notes, if they would pay attention, and they bless Bill Shea's heart. I mean, the guy is the messenger because he's basically the only person down there right now. But people are relying on Bill Shea's reporting, and Bill can't answer all the questions in the amount of space that he's got available and in the time he's got available. And so, the messenger is not, the news source that it used to be. And I think, people should recognize that, but they don't.
But it's the only one the radio doesn't even have news anymore. So it's just.
We've kind of lost that communication. You talk about transparency and whatever. We all try to be transparent, and we all try to talk about what we want to talk about. But if you're not talking during the meeting when people are there and questioning what you're doing, they're all going to assume that what Bill put in the paper was, the word of God, and it doesn't happen that way. So,
no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, there's different ways to interpret everything that happens at those meetings.
Yeah.
And I challenge anybody listening, go to a city council meeting. Even if you're not controversial about anything, or just go to a couple of them to see what it's like.
Well, we get the students there. St. Ed's always sends their government students there, and they walk in, and you can tell they're wide-eyed, going, "What the heck are we listening to?" And sometimes it's exciting for them. I mean, sometimes people actually get up and talk, and we solve a lot of issues sometimes at the table.
Yep.
But again, if you come in with a piece of paper to be signed and you haven't read the agenda, then you're kind of shorting yourself in education.
It's an education.
I've only gone to 2, and the one I went to, they asked if anyone wanted to come up and say anything. I think it was about the mall. And I was like, gosh, should I go up and say I support it? I almost went up and said, you know what, guys, you're doing a good job.
Keep it up. I think they would welcome that. I think, it's a major undertaking, nothing like we've ever done in this community before. And I mean, we all want the Boston store, we all want Faneuil's, we all want JCPenney, we want Sears to come back, but it's not happening that way. I mean, I'm not blind. I go to the recycling thing, and I know where those boxes are coming from. Those boxes aren't coming from local retailers. Everybody's doing what they do online. Do you want to shop local? We got to have the shops, and we got to have the people that are willing to take the risk, because if you put in a dress store, you're going to spend a lot of time watching the door, because it may not open for a while. We don't have a hardware store to speak of anymore.
Just got Menards and that's it. And Humber Hank shut down.
Right.
And are they supporting the local community?
Well, the outdoor store shut down.
Yep.
I mean, you start looking at the things that.
Yeah, it's tough. But
to have Dunham's is just huge, for the kids.
We were very thankful. Dunham's was always the key part of that whole power center, as they call it. And the other stores were not going to come here unless Dunham signed their lease first. And that went on for months, trying to wait for Dunham's to make up their mind. We were extremely happy that they came back. I hope them nothing but the best. I hope they all get rich. You got a lot of good employees, and it's a beautiful store. And
you just think about sports, and the kids need a baseball bat glove. And you can go to Walmart, but they have like one or two. They have one mouthpiece. They have one. Dunham's has it all.
And now they want that new torpedo bat that the Yankees are using.
They're cheaters.
I need one of those.
Swing a bat so often, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but you look at girls' state softball. I mean, and that's been kind of our motivator on Visit Fort Dodge. I mean, they generate $1 million a year in income into the community, and yet what do we have to offer them? I mean, we don't have the shopping facilities that it would really be nice that we get these families and these young girls, an opportunity to do some shopping and spend some money and get that local option sales tax so we can fix our roads and maintain them a little bit better. And that's what the mall thing is all about, is we're gearing up for what we used to be.
I'm excited for Girl State because you're finally going to a double elimination.
Yeah.
I'm part of 2 hotels in
elimination.
town, and they always say it fills hotel rooms. It hasn't sold out hotel rooms in 10 years.
Yeah.
But going to double elimination, people are going to have to stay because they're playing the next day. They're not going to be able to go home because it was so long between games before they'd play and just, I can drive 3 hours to go back home and not stay here and not have to spend the money. So.
Yeah.
That was a great move for the local economy, for restaurants, for hotels, for all of us. So the shopping.
Well, and the energy inside the stadiums are just awesome.
Yeah.
It was
it's
really
a great
cool.
thing, and there's no reason we can't expand on that with additional sports. We've got that trail system, and we look at the runs and stuff that are being done out there, the fundraising potential of our 26 plus miles when they get North 22nd Street done. It's going to be even better.
I can't wait. By your house.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Begging
just
for it.
It's just amazing the amount of work. And again, those funds are not taken away from city street improvements or anything. Most of those funds are grants and whatever, and they're well designed, so it's not taken away from anything. But it's definitely been an asset to the community.
That's what I need that torpedo baseball bat for. Is anybody holding off to give the land? I think there's one person out there. You know who you are.
You go talk
I don't
to your
know who you
neighbors.
are, but I know who you are.
Yeah, well, that was unfortunately that came up when I was there, and so it's been in the works for 2 or 3 years, and I think it's it's very, very close to being done. And once they hook it up to Badger, then hook it up to the winery. I mean, it's just going to be
That should be done this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in front of my house. It's dangerous. That's right where the woods are, and the road is narrow, and people really don't speed that much because everyone that lives out there knows that there's kids and stuff on the road. But, we ride on it quite a bit to go hop on the trail.
You have to.
Yeah, we have to. And I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, and it's like, okay, stay on the white line, and
Yeah,
it's
I'll be
dangerous.
behind you and stay to your right.
And I see all these families do it. So that is going to be awesome. And someone challenged me one time and said, yeah, no one ever uses these trails and this and that. And that morning, I had gone for a bike ride just from my house to the aquatic center, and I got up at like 6 in the morning to do that. I ran into like 8 people on the trail between 6 o'clock and 6:20 because it's about a 20-minute ride.
Yep.
And I was like, I saw that many people
as soon
in a
as it gets
20-minute
mixed right.
span
Yeah.
in that little area.
I go out to Kennedy, not so much now in the weather the way it is, but during the development phase and building out there that we were doing. And it's amazing how many people are on that road on North 15th Street. I think it was a little bit of a mistake when they jogged it a mile over because they couldn't get access there, but it gives you 3 more miles of riding, I guess. But, it's been a great improvement. I think the Trails Committee did a great job on that.
Joyce and I ride out there every once in a while. It's fun.
With your electric bikes.
Heck yeah. You can turn it on low, so you actually have to pedal our bikes. It's not the one you can push the button. So.
Okay, well, that makes me feel maybe a little better.
Yeah, it's 80%.
Todd's like, I can ride all the way to Kennedy and back, no problem.
And back. I might need a little generator, but I can do it.
80 miles an hour down 15th Street.
Yeah, it's not fast.
Yeah, no.
All right, I know one of your favorite things ever is probably the Veterans Memorial Park. Would I be correct? One of your biggest accomplishments?
Well, it was a group. I'm just a lowly individual in a group of people.
It was one of many.
Yeah.
One of many.
He was the one that led
I want to
many.
share the joy. But yeah, Sean was overseas when J.J. Bunnell got killed. He was in Iraq at the same time, and it hit us hard. Mm-hmm. And I've got to know his mom very well and his dad in passing, but it hit us hard. And at the time, Sean was with the 3rd ID in Hinesville, Georgia, and they had their Warriors Walk down there. And the guy that had done some development work down there had planted trees in honor of the guys from the 3rd ID that had been killed in the Iraq War. The numbers were just multiplying daily. It was a very hard time on the guys down there. And I kind of borrowed their idea. I didn't want to put a tank out there. And when I talked to Matt Cosgrove, when I first had the idea, I told him, I said, I want to build this walkway with trees and, honor the veterans. And Matt says, where do you want to put it? And I said, right about where your house is. We're looking the lake. And he took me over by the Children's Forest, and we looked around in the Children's Forest. I don't know if you remember, but, people go out there and kids, and they'd get the leaves in the fall, and then they'd make little, scrapbooks for school and whatever. And I had been back there a little bit fishing and whatever, and it was just an overrun, barren ground out there. It was so bad that one guy I know, who is a local guy, retired now from the post office, but his dad had a tree out there that they had planted, and they had no idea where it was. It was so overgrown. And so we started talking, and I had Terry Allers and Associates, draw up a little plan for me. It was one of his workers. I can't remember his full name right now, but we came up with a plan, and I kind of learned a lesson because Randy Kuhlman, a few years before that, had tried to put some bricks down at the in front of the library, honoring veterans, and he got a little bit of pushback because the veterans weren't involved in some of the discussions. And so the first thing I did was to go to the VFW, and I said, hey guys, this is what we're going to do. And they were all going, well, that's really nice, but how are you going to pay for it? And I said, well,
that little thing called money again.
Yeah, we're right back to the money. And so, we put out the notice that we're going to do this. This was in 2007 is when JJ got killed, and we started in 2008 and started fundraising, and it was amazing. I had originally planned to plant 100 trees. We sold those out too quick. We actually planted 100. We ended up with 99 because somebody came out and borrowed one of our trees. I hope you're doing well with it. So we had to replant that. But, the first couple of years, a lot of construction. I mean, we were out there a lot. I mean, day in and day out. Noon Sertoma was the group that I'm in that did it. We built the amphitheater. Nobody'd ever built an amphitheater. I mean, we're a bunch of guys, Marlon Garland from Jiffy Print out there throwing blocks around, at his advanced age, and Phil Stevenson, and I mean, the whole group, and Steve Vance and all, and Mike Johnson, and it was just a bunch of guys that just had I guess to make me happy. I don't know.
Don't make Terry mad.
Yeah. So anyway, we built it, and it was a great accomplishment. And when we finished up the first 600 foot of the sidewalk, I thought, okay, that's nice. And then all of a sudden I started getting more requests and more trees, and we ended up adding a couple more sidewalks. And, now we've been full for 2 or 3 years. And, people ask me, what are you going to do next? And I keep saying, the biggest problem is money. Again, it's the almighty dollar. Concrete costs have gone up. The sidewalk is stamped and stained. At the time we were paying like $8 a square foot, and I'm sure it's a lot higher than that now.
Yep.
We worked with Jesse Renz and Russ Clark with Clark Construction, and they were very good for us, and I think they cut me a deal, more or less, because they're very honored to be associated with it. But we're hoping eventually. We've got a group of people now, because I had to pull away a little bit because of my health issues in the last couple of years, and Steve Vance has stepped up with his health issues. And we've got the Marine Corps League now is helping us out. The conservation people are helping us quite a bit more. The football players at senior high are helping us. And so we actually had a meeting last week, about a week after I met with you at the VFW.
Yep.
We got together and talked to a bunch of the military people about what to do and when to do it. And, we're getting ready for Memorial Day, obviously. And so there's a group of people that are stepping up to help out. The conservation people mow out there, which is a blessing because that's a lot of grass. But the trimming and the trees, taking care of the trees, Pica has been out and helped us with that, which, I don't know where this town would be without Pica.
Oh, it's
Janet
so
and
pretty
Phyllis.
because of them. They do such a big job.
Yeah. I mean, we just don't appreciate and thank them enough. I don't think, Janet and Phyllis have created a great organization. And I think, if we could only follow in their lead, let's put some flowers out in front of your house and make it look pretty.
Yep.
Especially if you live on 15th Street or a major thoroughfare. Let's make this town look a little nicer.
Make it easy to drive around without.
Yeah. So anyway, it's turned out well, and we've maintained it well. And, Dave McGoy passed away a couple years ago now.
I miss him.
Yeah, Dave was a good guy, and I know him and Crystal real well. And Dave had an auction of a lot of his stuff, and we ended up getting a donation from Dave's estate, and so we've got that for some operational costs now. But like resealing the sidewalks is going to take a lot of money because we've got like 1,300 feet of it now, and it's expensive. So it's I think it's in good hands. I think Steve has done a good job, and I still babysit it. I go out there and walk, and it's kind of like my safe place. So, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, how can folks get involved? If somebody wants to donate money, who do they, or help, how do they get a hold of somebody?
Well, again, probably, Steve Vance is kind of heading up the workforce aspect of it. And there's been a lot of people that stepped up. If you want a paver, you can send a check to Veterans Park at my office, which is right behind the fire station. And we take care of it. It's just basically, if you want to show up, we are having scheduled work days where you can show up and get your hands dirty if you want to. And there's always work to be done. There's always leaves, there's always sticks, there's always things. So,
always something.
Always something.
It's kind of neat how the community stepped up for veterans since then.
Yeah.
The Veterans Bridge Project has been another one that's really, really cool. And
Mike Larson did a good job on that.
Yeah, they're going to get lights here pretty soon, so that'll be really neat. And I think he's got half the money raised for the pavilion already.
Yeah.
When somebody mentions a veterans project here, it's amazing how people step up and
we are named Fort Dodge. So. But again, I think that wasn't planned, obviously, but the fact that we were involved in a pretty major war overseas with a lot of our local residents and children involved definitely helped. But, I've got people out there honoring their relatives from the Civil War. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So you're right. There's been a great influx of care and compassion for the military people.
Yeah, we had the Army recruiter on a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how this area is so important for recruiting because he doesn't want to say it's easy to recruit here, but it's easy to find good people here.
Right.
People that want to serve, people that want to do something for their country.
Good hard-working people.
So,
he said the quality is incredible.
Yep, the quality of people from this community. So that's pretty cool. And
that is really neat.
Yep. So anyway, it's out there. It's amazing how many people I run into that don't know where it's at.
Yeah.
Have never been there. And I say, we've been there for 15 years. This will be our 15th year. When we planted the trees, I asked how long they live, and they said, 20, 25 years, but you'll be dead by then. I'm thinking,
hoping not.
You might be right, but it's only a few years away, and we've got 353 trees out there right now. Yep. If something would happen, like the emerald ash borer, that came through Fort Dodge and wiped out all of our trees, if something would happen to that, our trees out there, because they all are Chanticleer pears, so they're all one specific breed, and we've had some die. Most of them have died because the deer are out there rubbing them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we've lost a few trees. We got 4 of them right now. I think we're going to replant this spring. But, there's always that going on. But it's just it's a great place. I encourage people to go out there. Nothing else, grab a Subway or something and go, or grab a Godfather's Pizza.
Yeah. Grab a pizza and go chill out.
Just remember to pick up your stuff when you leave.
Yeah, that's right. Take your garbage with you.
Yeah, take your garbage with you. Yeah, no.
Or there'll be bears.
Yeah, bears. We'll send the bears.
I was out there one night and I was working and it was getting late, and it was a group of people from Iowa Central, the runners, the cross-country team. Yeah. They've got a great cross-country team out at Iowa Central, and I watch them up by the hospital all the time running, thinking, boy, I wish I could do that, not only downhill but uphill. And they came running by, and I'm going, oh, that looks like fun. And about 2 seconds later, I heard this terrible noise coming in from the east, and I looked down, there was a big buck running down that same trail at full gallop, and he had a rack on him like you wouldn't believe. And I said, a good thing he didn't run into them, because somebody would have got hurt.
Yeah.
So we have our wildlife. I've got pictures of snakes eating toads out there and stuff. It's just, it's nature.
It is nature.
Yeah, it's nature. So.
One of my favorite questions, because I know you're a business owner, which means you probably work 80 hours a week.
Minimum.
Plus you have all this other stuff going on. You got all the volunteer work. How do you manage your time?
Well, that's a good question. According to my wife, not very well.
That is a common answer for all of us. According to our wife.
I think, first off, you got to have passion and devotion. I think, I'm the first one at work and the last one to leave and the last one to get paid. I do work for myself, so I kind of set my own schedule. So, I mean, for me to come in to something like this, it involves just crossing off the time a couple weeks ahead of time, and doing it. So I've made a special effort to make time for my passions, and I've been involved. I think I counted, 5 or 6 different committees that I served on when I was in city council, as well as city county meetings and small group meetings. And so there's a lot of time that I would spend out of the office. And I always said one meeting basically wiped out what I could make, at working.
Yeah.
So it's expensive, but you just kind of, you go with the flow and don't think about it. So I think time management is critical. I think, over the years, I've wasted a lot of 3M notepads, with various notes, trying to keep things straight. I can honestly say in 10 years on city council, I've missed less than 5 meetings, and that's during my health crisis and also during my wife's. So, I mean, you can do it. You can do it. Mm-hmm. It's hard. And I remember meeting with Judge Habhab before I ran the first time, and actually Jim took me over there, Jim Kesterson, and we met with Judge Habhab, who I had known in passing, and Judge looked up at me and he says, "I really appreciate the fact that you're doing this." And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "For anybody that's working to also take on public service is just amazing to me." And he said, "I'm very proud that people are doing that." And I encourage that. I mean, I think it's not, it's not an obligation, obviously, but it's something that everybody should consider. It's very rewarding, not financially rewarding by any means. Yeah. We haven't voted a pay raise, I think, in 10 years, and people argue, "Well, you don't deserve it." And I go, "Okay, thanks."
Thank you.
Thanks for the comeback.
I should have been a supervisor.
Yes. Yeah, that's where the money is. And if you want a career, the supervisor is the way to go. But I think giving back to the community where you live is important. I mean, you're here, your friends and relatives are here, your church and family and schools, and I mean, you just have an obligation. And if you see something that isn't going the way you want it to, then speak up or get involved. And you don't have to run for office. We've got probably 25, 30 different committees that you can get on and influence decisions that will affect the community for a long, long time. I mean, things that we're doing 10 years ago, we're just starting to see happen. We started working on the Northwest River District, 3rd Street, 3rd Avenue Northwest. You talk about that house on 2nd Street or 2nd Avenue Northwest, that's getting a new road out in front of it.
Yeah.
And just in case you're wondering. These are things that we worked on 10, 12 years ago, and they're just now coming, to the hilt. Okay. There's other parts of town than the northeast part of town. My section that I represented was the northwest part of the community, it's a tough area up there. I mean, it's the original Fort Dodge, a lot of small houses, a lot of problems, no curbs on the street, no storm sewers, a lot of different things, and we worked on that. We spent a lot of money and time doing that, and the community sewer initiative that we did over the last few years, which added a couple $25 to your water bill. Everybody says that's $25. And I go, yeah, but we used to have like 25, 30, 40 sewer pumps that were pumping water out of the sewer system into the storm sewer. And so we're getting flooded basements. We don't have that problem anymore. It costs a lot of time, money, and but those are problems.
People need to hear the why.
Yeah, but that's why we do it, and that's why we did it. And the amazing thing is that you can have something like that on the agenda, and it will go off without discussion.
It's on the consent agenda.
Yeah, nobody talks about it. I mean, the people don't, they don't say, "Hey, we really need that,"
Mm-hmm.
But you drop their levy tax 20 cents, and you think the world was ending, but. There's a lot of things that happen. I encourage people to get involved. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having an opinion. I've been wrong, I've been right, and it's just a great thing when it all comes together.
Yep.
Well, and like you said, just like get involved. Someone else was on here and said that it was all volunteers that did the mountain bike trail.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a group got together. They really wanted it, and they just pushed and
they've had events out there. Yeah, they've had events, and I mean that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the impact that had, because what they say, it's hand carved. It's not. They didn't use a bulldozer. They went out there and cut everything in with shovels, which you just don't have. Yeah. And they said people will drive. They come from all over the place to use that bike trail.
Events. David was a mountain bike guy and hurt himself out there, but he pushed for that. I mean, they got a lot of help from the city, I think, when they needed it. But it was a very devoted group of people that did that. And I mean,
they've kept it up, and they've brought people to town. Yeah. I mean, it's an attraction now for the city of Fort Dodge.
Well, that's just it. I mean, we're preparing for the future. I mean, the jobs that we're drawing into this area don't even exist. You ask me what's going to happen 15 years, 10 years down the road, those jobs and the businesses aren't even thought of yet. And
they say when you have a baby and that baby is born, there's a 70 or 80% chance that the job they're going to work at when they're older doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. And that's the way we got to look at it. I mean, we got to provide opportunity. We got to have small business involvement. Mm-hmm. Having Lisa Shimkat in Washington, D.C. is going to be a great thing for us.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, now we've got somebody we can call up and tap, I mean, these are things that we need to work on now. You look at the big empty trolley center, that'd be a great economic development project for small business. If you could bring it in, have a centralized desk, somebody to answer the phone, and people could sit back there and just think.
Yep.
And that's the future, I think, is we're going to be working with our minds more than we are with our hands.
Yeah. Joyce and I went out to supper with Lisa the other day. She was back in town for the weekend, and it's so interesting to hear about how different it is in Washington, D.C. versus here. And it's the stuff she's doing and what she's, she can't give us details, but It's just the caliber of having that and having somebody local. And of course, Shimkat Motor so tied locally to what we are. They've been around for 100 and some years.
Yeah. I'm not sure Washington would be a place I want to be right now, but
she's enjoying it.
Yeah, the thrill of new stuff.
That's a real estate fact too. There's a lot of people there, as well as a lot of people in New York.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Chicago, L.A. Yeah. There's advantages to having a lot of people. You get a lot of different ideas. You get a lot more cash, expendable cash. The dating scene's a lot better, but what are we going to do with a date? I mean,
I don't want that. They
better come with instructions.
52 years is a lot.
Does she have you trained yet?
No. Heaven forbid. No. She gives me a lot of advice. She's been she's counseled me on several decisions, none of which I have taken her advice on. But no, I shouldn't say that. She's opinionated.
Yes, she is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to flip Facebook to find an opinion. I can
you just ask.
I just walk in the door.
Yeah, she'll have it ready. Awesome. Well, we appreciate having you on today. This has been super insightful, and it's always fun talking to you.
We appreciate everything that you've done for Fort Dodge.
Thank you.
And that's why we do this show.
Yep.
So
I appreciate it. I wish you two the best in your careers.
Thank you.
Yay.
That's a wrap at today's episode of Talk Fort Dodge.
Stay connected with us on social media and join us next time as we continue exploring Fort Dodge's stories through the lens of two lifelong Dodgers. I'm Jeremiahjcondon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and this is Talk Fort Dodge.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.